Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Great Stories Presents Comic Shop Talk. And we're here to figure out the age-old questions. How much shop could a comic shop talk if a comic shop could talk shop?
That was an unexpected intro there, Ken.
Thank you.
Very creative.
Thank you. I've been working on that for 2 months.
Was it guy?
Yeah.
I would have totally screwed up the delivery on that. I wouldn't have, been all jumbled.
Well, that's all I had, so thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
See you next week.
So we do have a lot to discuss because we are continuing our Spider-Man discussion.
We are, and we had a layoff last month, so we Spider-Man comes out twice a month, so we have a lot of stuff to get caught up on.
5 issues.
5 issues, and we're still we're still dealing with Kindred.
Still on Kindred. I mean, I don't know why this has dragged on so long. Must mean a lot to the whole Spider-World family, right?
You get a feeling that this isn't just like another flash in the pan, and even though it's not being labeled as an event, this story has carried on far longer than any arc, normal story arc would carry on. Most of the time, you'd get 4 or 5 issues out of a story arc, and then they'd kind of wrap it up, move on to the next story.
Yep.
This Kindred story has sort of been playing out in the background since the start of Nick Spencer's run of Spider-Man, and since it took center stage with Sins Rising, which I think happened sometime in the 40s, it's been nothing but, it's been Kindred all the time.
Yeah, I think it might go back to issue 42, as a matter of fact. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure. But I mean, it's a fantastic story. It's been, I mean, we've talked about this, about how much weight this story has had in the world of Peter Parker and his loved ones, and how the stark contrast we've discussed about, the kind of like lively, more, how should I say, innocent Peter Parker stories that we've had in the past, like where it's been a little more family fare, and this is a lot more like, really just hit you right in between the eyes, with the topics and the themes, and not for the faint of heart type stuff, and it just has really continued to a point where we're starting to see some plot developments here that I think were at least unexpected for me. So maybe we should start off by so issue number 56 begins the Last Remains post-mortem story.
Yes. So. Going back to family, this is being family friendly. This is also about family as well.
It is.
Peter's immediate family being like Aunt May, and to an extent MJ, because at one point they were married.
That's right.
And they were family. Mm-hmm. But also his spider family, the group of spider-powered beings from other universes, his universe.
Yes.
Other people that have been part of this web of spider totems.
Yep.
They've all been brought together by Kindred as a way of bringing Peter to some kind of realization, which Kindred keeps saying over and over again, this is, he wants Peter to realize something, for him to acknowledge his own sins, the sins of his past.
Yes.
And this whole elaborate setup with all these people, him specifically going after the people that he cares about the most, was all being done almost with good intentions to make Peter realize and finally acknowledge this great wrong he's done, which it's been hinted at, but we've never actually gotten a direct answer of actually what that is. So when we pick up this story, it's following up directly after the last issue where Mary Jane shows up, crashes the party, and then afterwards Green Goblin shows up, Norman Osborn shows up, and he chucks a pumpkin bomb that blows up unexpectedly. Mary Jane's caught in the blast, and Peter thinks that Mary Jane's dead, and then it's the end of issue. So that was a huge, remember that was a huge, that was the last thing we talked about.
So Green Goblin seemed to almost have this working against Kindred's interest. Kindred is seeming to have the attachment to MJ.
Yes.
And Green Goblin almost stealing his this relationship that was like a way to exact revenge. It almost seemed like at the end of that issue, right?
There definitely was like there's this play that I feel like there's like they try to play this connection between Kindred and Mary Jane.
Yes. And but then of course we find out that it was a ploy.
It was Norman all along.
Yes. And that it was staged. I mean, MJ's current occupation is actress.
Yeah.
And she was playing a role.
I guess she sold it really well because
Yep.
Peter thought she was gone.
Right.
But MJ kind of gives him the old wink and like, trust me.
Yep.
And apparently Norman had a plan this entire time. And a lot of parts of these issues, one of the narrative devices they use is that they're kind of like skipping between scenes, right?
Yep.
Because we are like kind of dropped in to the issue, and Harry's talking to Kingpin, right? And like they're like plotting about Harry, how they could trap him, and how like Harry.
Yeah, Norman and Kingpin.
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, not Harry.
Yep.
Norman is talking to Kingpin, saying
Right.
like how they're trying to hatch this plan of like how they could trap Harry.
Yes.
And all the
using
while,
spot.
Norman's trying to play it off like, hey, like we both have like a vendetta against this guy, you know, so let's join forces, take him down. Only deal is I get to go at him first. And that's sort of like the backdrop of like how we watch the final battle between Norman and Harry kind of play out, where they're kind of bantering back and forth, slugging it out. Mary Jane's helping the Order, or just like coming to escape, and Spider-Man, he's just kind of there, watching this all play out, right?
Yeah, the interesting part of this too is that if you go back a few issues, Norman Osborn was confronted by the Sin Eater.
Yes.
And so his transition back into Green Goblin form probably takes us a little bit by surprise.
Well, there was a subplot going on in the Ravencroft series.
Yep.
Where I believe what happened, like after the Sin Eater was defeated, the Sins were all released. They were released back in the world, right?
Yep.
And they all went back into their host bodies. Sure. And not only did they return to the host bodies, they seem to have come back with like a little more oomph than they had originally.
Right.
So I thought, okay,
so maybe that's the reason
so
we see
we see Norman relapse back into being the Goblin. So
right.
I was assuming that's what happened, but
yep.
It's revealed later that like through a series of twists and turns, that Norman's sins never returned to him.
Right.
And this whole time, this elaborate ploy that he's hatching with Kingpin to capture Kindred using the Darkhold power wasn't so much to exact revenge upon Harry, but rather he was trying to, in some ways, save Harry from hurting all these other people.
And to atone for all of his...
For Norman's own sins.
For Norman's own sins.
And that was a really touching moment where Norman was, and I think this may have been the next issue where Norman is basically, well, I guess this goes into 57, where Norman is talking to Kindred behind, in the cage, and he reveals to him like this whole thing isn't about me exacting revenge or anything. This is about protecting you. This is about him atoning for his sin, which was, being Green Goblin, being a homicidal maniac, and then transferring this all down, passing it all down to his son, and then like subsequently also with his grandson, with Norman.
Yes.
If you remember, there's I think a few arcs before the arc before Nick Spencer's run, there was the Red Goblin arc.
Yes.
Remember that when Norman had taken the Carnage symbiote, and I think he kidnapped Normie and like transferred the Red Goblin into him. It was a whole crapshoot. Not Father of the Year by any stretch.
Reminded me of my drinking episode of my bachelor party.
Oh yeah.
Just had a little brush with a little symbiote. Not a big deal.
No.
No. Yeah.
I think
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I think they have. I think they have a cream for that that you can take.
So yeah, but go on. I didn't mean to detract. Go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. But okay, so in issue 57 is all told from the viewpoint of it's being narrated in the background by Norman, and it's all very ominous. You know, there's a lot of like him just saying like this is all part of the plan. He's still exactly where he wants to be, which is really just terrifying because it's almost like he is playing this game. He knows exactly how the players are going to play their parts, and everything's going exactly as he expected it. So 57 is between the talk that Harry has with Kindred, with his son.
Yep.
And there's also an afterwards, again, this is another issue where the two stories are kind of cut in with each other. Yep. And we have Spider-Man show up at Norman's apartment, and he has some choice words for him.
So, trying to recall here. So the Spider-Man goes to Norman's apartment?
I believe it was either Spider-Man. I think it was Spider-Man was at Norman's apartment. Or
I think he goes to Harry's wife's apartment.
I think that was
later on. Oh,
yeah,
okay. So I might be.
He does go to he does go to his to Liz's apartment.
Yes.
But prior to that, he has a conversation with Norman where Norman reveals to him that he actually has been cleansed. He's still cleansed. That he is now like completely repentant.
I think that's actually at Raven.
Oh, was that Ravencroft? Yeah.
Ravencroft, because he's
right.
confronted by his Spider family, who basically really go at Peter. Like,
they're pissed.
You get a lot to answer for here, and maybe now's not the time for you to answer it. Maybe you need some time before you give us the response that we deserve.
That's right.
But that really kind of hits Peter between the eyes, and he goes in. He's very angry.
That's right. That's what set him off to go confront Norman in the first point. Is that he was confronted by his Spider family, probably the closest people to him outside of his family, and they're all sort of giving him a lot of the same questions that Kindred is like, why are you doing this? Is this about helping people, or is this about kind of covering your own ass?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And Peter has no answers for them, and they're furious. He goes, he wants to take it out on Norman, but then he learns Norman's he's not Green Goblin anymore. He's just regular Norman.
Right.
And he seems genuinely repentant about everything and wanting to help, about like, hey, let me help these people. Let me help MJ. And it's especially when he says MJ that Peter loses it.
He doesn't seem to be, Peter Parker at this point doesn't seem to be in a position to be able to give grace to anyone. Because he's got so much inner turmoil right now that I think even seeing his arch enemy, Norman Osborn, somehow turning a corner towards the virtuous has even created even more rage within him.
Yeah, it's like, how dare you? How you don't get off that easy, right?
Right.
Yeah, I totally see that, and I kind of felt like it was, this Peter's always making this decision like, hey, I got to help these people. But like, I think there's something he said in that issue where he's like, I'm done with the Osborns. I'm done with you. I'm done with Harry. I'm done trying to help you. I'm walking away.
Yep.
And like Norman almost reminds him like, you walking away isn't doing nothing. Like, you walking away is like making things just so much worse.
Right.
You have responsibility for this. Like, as much as you hate it, it might not be your fault. Norman was taking responsibility and owning up to the fact that, hey, this was my responsibility and my fault.
Yep.
It's like, Peter, you gotta acknowledge this too, or else it's kind of just like, maybe this is part of what Kindred's trying to get him to realize is like, look, you are responsible for a lot of the stuff that happens, not only what had happened to Harry, what happened to Gwen, what's happened to MJ, what's happened to all the people in Peter's orbit who have been hurt. It's like, look, man, I know you didn't ask for this. I know you're trying to do the best that you're trying to do, but you've made a lot of things worse. You've brought a lot of pain and harm and hurt into a lot of people's lives, and you need to somehow, instead of just saying like this is the Green Goblin's fault, he's crazy. This is, this is Harry's fault. This is someone else's fault. This is just the acts and the outcome of just insane people, and I'm just doing the best I can because I'm Spider-Man.
He's really almost like it's like the axis has been like completely flipped here. Now, right? Because he makes a plea to Spider-Man saying, "Listen, I can't reach him. I'm trying to, and I can't reach him. He won't respond to me. But you can. Maybe you can. And and at this point, Parker has just abdicated all responsibility in the matter.
And by turning his back on him, he kind of, maybe he's damning him by doing that.
Maybe.
So Norman says, like, help me save him. Let me help you save MJ. And then when Peter hears that, he, like, starts just beating on Norman and, like, beats him, like, within an inch of his life. Just, like, pure rage. Just definitely set him off. And it was scary. It was a
very frightening scene.
It was definitely a very scary turn for Spider-Man, who you generally don't think of as one of those superheroes that would cross that line of taking a life unnecessarily of someone that would do anything to protect life, even if it was an enemy, which he has done in the past. He saved his enemies because he's never believed in that the final solution.
He's not the guy who loses control.
Yep.
He just isn't.
But he's been on. I mean, you can see with all these events how he's been pushed to that point.
Yes.
And then I think this will kind of bring us into the next two issues where we kind of see him being tipped over. So we have in between issues 56 and 57 a two-issue sort of like I'd say it's like almost like a side story involving Mr. Negative.
Yep.
Right. And it's about Martin Lee. When the Sin Eater had taken his sin, it took away his alter ego of Mr. Negative from him. All his negative energy was gone, and he's like, he's just like a good regular dude, but he's being hunted. He's being hunted not only by the dark energies, his sins that are trying to get back into his hosts. He's being chased by the organized crime organization that wants its leader back.
Right.
And they're all descending on Feast, which is like just a food pantry, like community outreach service that was started by Martin Lee, but currently being run by Aunt May.
That's right.
So Martin, really not knowing where else to turn, goes back to this place because it's also sacred ground, and it's a place where the sins can't come in uninvited. Unfortunately, the same protection doesn't hold true for the henchmen. So we have like a group of these like ninja descending upon Feast, where Aunt May is.
Yep.
And at this time, Spider-Man, at this point, goes to visit Liz Allen and basically break the bad news and drop the bomb that Harry has gone back to being, well, he hasn't gone back to being the Goblin, but he's come back to being something even worse.
Right. And this has shattered her world now.
She doesn't believe it at first.
She doesn't. Right. And
she's like flat out's like, you're lying.
And it's her own son that basically comes in and kind of condemns all the patriarchal figures in the family.
Yeah, with good.
He calls them all liars.
Good reason.
With good reason.
Yeah.
And of course, within this this exchange, this is when we have Norman show up, and of course, this doesn't make Peter very happy.
Peter still hasn't accepted the fact that Norman has reformed, and it's easy to understand why. He says it himself, like, you've done this before. At first, it was like a psychotic episode, and like, you were able to come over it. Then you're able to suppress it with drugs, but it always comes back. No matter how many times you rehabilitate, you always fall back. You always fall back into your Green Goblin ways.
Yep.
And it's like and to Peter, I don't think he sees like there's no redemption for Norman. Norman, for everything that he's done, he takes it like a champ. Like, he really just stands up like, look, you're right, but I'm trying to help you. Like, you might not believe me, but I'm trying to help you. I need to tell you something. Your aunt's in trouble. You need to go now, and you need to go like rescue her.
That's right.
And so Peter leaves to go rescue Aunt May, and Norman and Liz are talking, and he's making the same plea to Liz that he gave to Peter. I can't reach my son, but maybe you can. Like, you come and just talk to him.
Yep. And of course, this leads into Norman trying to connect with his grandson.
Who he once kidnapped and tried to make the next Red Goblin.
Right.
So obviously there's a little bit of strain between their relationship.
A bit, yes. But it's actually, the scene is done surprisingly well. I think Nick Spencer wrote it very astutely, very effectively, in spite of the history. I mean, this is definitely not a DC Martha moment, you know.
Yeah, very subtle.
Yeah, and you know, there's just a lot of tragedy there, a lot of hurt in this family, and you have a young child who obviously is probably starving for some kind of connection, but not knowing who to trust. So I don't know where this goes in the future, but that's a very interesting subplot that Spencer's developing.
I agree.
But then let's switch it back to what's going on with Aunt May.
Aunt May and Martin Lee are just kind of they're having like a jaw session. They're just kind of talking about like the good that he did, even though he had this alter ego that was doing awful things. You know, there was also this other side of him that was doing good.
Yep.
Spider-Man shows up, and he is looking for a fight. Like, I think he's kind of itching for this. Like, he doesn't like seeing Aunt May in trouble.
Yep.
But he's like, a part of him is like, all right, this is going to be good. Like, I finally have that outlet to let go of some of this this tension and this stress.
Yep, and I don't need to hold back.
And he doesn't hold back, and he's fighting this swarm of ninjas. And at one point, he socks one of the ninjas back into like a sword of another ninja, basically impaling him, assuming killing him. And
one has to assume that.
You would have to assume that. And while Peter didn't directly kill him, indirectly he did. You know, he sent him flying into this blade. And the panel were laid out in such a way that, like, you could see Peter's reaction in the background, where he's watching this, this ninja get impaled, and he doesn't actually look like there's any remorse. It's just more fury, more anger.
Further establishing that his psyche is pretty broken right now.
He's going down a path where you don't know, like, hey, is he going to be able to come back from this? Where is it leading him? Certainly nowhere good.
Yeah.
And the fight's going pretty bad, and Spider-Man is getting overwhelmed. He's kind of battling back and forth until one of the goons grabs Aunt May and is like, one more step, and the old lady gets it.
Yeah.
And it's at this point that Martin Lee decides to do the noble thing and says, hey, these guys are after me. I'm just going to give myself up.
Yep. And
Aunt May is very much against this idea. It's just like, you can't do this. You're such a good man. And Martin says, no, you know what? I did all these things. I deserve this. Yeah. This is sort of my responsibility. Mm-hmm. That I have to own up to this, what I've done, even though it was under this, he has this split personality disorder that forces him in between the light and the dark.
Yep.
That even though it was hard to say that it's his fault that he did it, regardless of that, he still did those things, and he needs to own up to it. And there was a line that he says to Aunt May, and
Yep.
as he's walking, he's kind of walking out to his doom, like he knows what's coming. Okay, so he's going out to meet the energy, and he says to Aunt May, "Let me for once be the good man. Let me show that we are not defined by our sins."
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I thought was just such a great line when you're talking about all these about responsibility, and owning up to sins, and maybe acknowledging your sins and what you've done wrong. Doesn't mean that you're beyond salvation.
Right. And there's a message there probably for Peter.
Exactly right.
Within that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, don't let yourself be defined by all these bad things that you've done. Don't let that,
Right.
change the good person that you are.
Right. Because it seems that the road to the degradation of Peter Parker's psyche is a direct correlation to him questioning himself.
Yes, totally. Throughout these issues, especially with the last remains postmortems that were done by Mark Bagley. We should also mention we've had a little deviation from the artist. So for previous arcs, we had Patrick Gleason, who was doing fantastic work on these stories. For this last remains, we had Mark Bagley doing artwork, an old Spider-Man vet.
Yep.
And then we had Mercado Ferreira that did the Mr. the Mr. Negative 2-story arcs, and I think we went back to Bagley for number 6.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Bagley, I think the artwork has been fantastic for these issues.
Yep.
Bagley specifically, I feel like he does such good dramatic work with his panel layouts, with his use of shadows, like when they do like the monologues and like the different dialogues between the characters. It's all very dramatic, like a lot of very good use of like establishing shots and moving around the character.
Yep.
Where you'll see like a panel of like a line of 4 panels, and it'll just kind of like rotate from like the side of the character's face kind of towards the front, and then like full on split shot, and then like him looking the other way, where it's just very kinetic reading of the panels, and it really brings a lot of drama and weight to the dialogue.
100% agree with that. Yep.
Which is excellent, because I feel like as much action as there is that they've been mixing in, it's a very dialogue heavy. Been a very dialogue heavy few issues.
And even more so with the 60th issue.
60th issue feels like it is sort of the culmination of everything. Like this is the whole point that Nick Spencer has been sort of driving his Peter Parker to come to. And it takes place at an old theater, which has connections to both Harry, Norman, and Mary Jane, as way back in the Bronze Age of Spider-Man, Norman and Harry reopened this like dilapidated theater.
Yep.
And Mary Jane gets her big break there, acting there. So it has
another great callback by Spencer to acknowledge stories of the past.
Yeah,
there.
bringing in the history, right? Tying these stories back to things that happened in the past, because this has been a story arc that very much focuses on the past.
Yes.
And history between these characters. And Mary Jane is trying to come to some sort of breakthrough with Peter. Peter's not processing the events that happened. Everything that's gone on has really pushed him beyond what's pushed him, like where he's been pushed before.
Yep.
And she seems genuinely concerned about his mental well-being. So
Yep.
she asks him to try an exercise that her psychologist had advised her to do after the passing of Gwen Stacy, which was basically get on stage and then pretend like you're talking to the person that you want to address, even though they're not there.
Yep.
And it was this really fantastic series where Peter steps up on stage and like you have the glare of the spotlight kind of like beaming down on him, and he's like, I can't do this. I'm not really into this kind of thing.
Yep.
And little by little, he starts like with MJ's support and guidance. He gets to a place where he opens his eyes and he sees Kindred sitting there in the front row where MJ had been.
Yep.
And he just starts telling Harry all the things that are on his mind.
Yep.
Not just the stuff blaming him for all the stuff, all the bad things that Harry has done, but also acknowledging that he feels that a lot of what Harry has said is accurate and truthful, and that he himself is filled with like a lot of these doubts, no matter how much he attempts to sort of either wash those parts of his life away, cover them up, or just like not remember them.
Yep.
That he acknowledges that like there are these things that he doesn't know how to reconcile. And after a lot of real soul-searching questions, he breaks down, and his final message to Harry is, "What do I do?"
Yeah. He's come back to, I want to fix this.
I'm not sure if he doesn't know how to fix it. Or,
He doesn't.
And I guess that's the real problem, is that as a superhero, usually the way to fix things is just kind of punching your way through them.
Yeah.
You bust enough heads until you solve the problem. But with these types of decisions that Peter has made and the trauma it has caused, there's no easy way to fix them.
There's this theme that about like how tough friendship can be. Because you have where friends hurt each other, but real friendship would be to go through that hurt and then tell the other person how it is that they can be better. And that seems like, maybe to your point, being a superhero and using that method of punching your way through stuff, it's just, it's so easy when you have the power to do something. Not easy, but it gives you the leg up, right, on solving many problems that other people would perceive to be very difficult too. But this is a problem of, emotion. This is not a physical problem. This is not this is not crime. This is something that goes a lot deeper. And gosh, like at the end of the day, no matter how great you might be in the light of the light of the public eye or whatever, you're still a broken person at the end of the day, and we all need friends. We all need someone to be there in support of us, And
I think it's also that on that point. Sorry, you can keep going if you.
Oh no, and he gets that from MJ. He's like he's feeling almost like a little shred of hope, after this performance, that MJ has him go through, this therapeutic performance. You know, and he's feeling like, my gosh, maybe I do have a friend that can help me through this, and that's giving me that hope. And you can tell that he wants that from Harry too, even though he's already said, I'm done with the Osborns. You know, I found that to be, like, it's a very, like, revealing, very, like, vulnerable moment.
Yeah, there was, touching on that, there was something he said about, like, finding that one person. I don't know if it was something he had to do about marriage, but somebody made the comment about, like, just, I think it was after he had the talk with Liz, and he was talking about, like, just, like, marriage and, like, how Liz had really helped Harry out, and that how important it was to have just maybe all you need to just have one person that you always knew would be there to catch you no matter what. And maybe just one person is all you need. Maybe Peter needs that, and maybe Peter doesn't really have it. I mean, Aunt May is probably the closest that he has to that. You would argue MJ as well, but you know, there's been just like so much history between them where that's hard to say whether or not he really has her back, or whether she really has his.
Yeah.
He wants her to be that person, and you can see that very clearly at the end of his soliloquy.
Yep.
She gets on stage, they embrace. There's that beautiful moment with like the spotlight shining down on the both of them. Beautiful layout page, and like you could really feel the emotional release that he had at that point.
Yep.
Just getting to that point and acknowledging these things out loud. And then we get two twists. First, we see, well, Peter's got a split. He's late for class. Classic Peter.
Yep.
And then MJ goes back to the theater, and she starts talking to this character in the shadows, like everything's going according to plan. He has no idea what's going on. Yep. And she turns around, and she is working with Mysterio. And you're just like, what the fuck?
Yep, pretty much.
It was like, what? And
Yep.
I felt there was a lot of points during these issues where MJ is talking, especially when I read them the second time, I read MJ completely different, where she's almost written in this like sinister way, where there's something dark and slightly untrustworthy about who she is and what she's doing. She kind of comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, like, she's like kind of like playing tricks on Peter, working with the Green Goblin. Now she's working with Mysterio, and you're wondering what is her goal? Because now, if it wasn't obvious before, she's up to something.
She's Hollywood MJ.
Do you think she's like a stunt double or something?
I don't know.
She's like gallivanting around in MJ's as the real MJ. I don't know either. It was so confusing. That came out of like absolutely nowhere.
Mysterio seems to acknowledge that she has good intentions.
Yeah, but the road to hell.
But the manner in which she's approaching it, yeah, is clearly she's not being truthful.
Yeah.
With
so
Peter.
Clearly, MJ wants something. She has her own motives.
Yep.
And then we get the next reveal, which to me also, I feel ties into what's going on with MJ. We have Doctor Strange breaking into the casino that we all remember. Well, at least I remember from back in like Secret War.
Yeah.
And
yes.
The proprietor being the literal demon Mephisto.
Yes.
And Doctor Strange asking Mephisto, what's up with Peter Parker's soul?
Yeah, that was kind of an unexpected set of panels. I'm like, how much more layered and complicated with the story can we get? How many agendas are actually flying about here?
Well, I think, okay, so this makes sense because we've been talking a lot during our previous talks about how this is going to tie back to One More Day.
Yep.
And the deal that Peter Parker made, the literal deal with the devil that Peter Parker made
Yes.
after Civil War.
Yeah.
Basically, the trade-off was Aunt May at that point was dying, or she was dead. Mm-hmm. And Peter made a deal with Mephisto, along with Mary Jane, that Peter and Mary Jane's marriage would be basically erased from existence, like it never happened.
Yep.
Aunt May would come back to life, and the whole world would forget Spider-Man's secret identity because Peter Parker had revealed himself previously during Civil War. Mm-hmm. And Mephisto agrees to this. Well, he basically makes this deal with Peter.
Yep.
But towards the end, MJ whispers something to Mephisto's ear, some some writer or some follow-on clause, and we've never got to the bottom of what that part of the deal was.
Yep.
So I still feel like this has got to be where Spencer's going at this point. Like now that we have Mephisto involved again, it's pretty obvious that they're kind of somehow, hopefully, retcon One More Day, or at least give us some closure to that whole situation with MJ, Mephisto, and whether or not that was basically the sin that Kindred keeps getting Peter to try to remember. Like, remember that you did this.
Yeah.
You made this deal. You traded your happiness. You made a conscious decision to trade your happy life with MJ, your one true love, to bring your aunt back to life.
Right. I think you're dead on with that, Ken. This is. I have to say that the storyline, I've been in love with it from the start. What Spencer's been doing, and it's not lost any momentum for me. Can't wait for the next issue to come out. I don't know how you feel about that, but
I can't even. I mean, I have no idea where they're going with it, but I just feel like so much thought and time has been spent crafting this story.
Yep.
And I will say that the only thing that I wish is that I kind of wish it was a little more condensed. Like it could have gone a little. There could have been a little more pacing. Like Spencer is spending a lot of time really developing these characterizations, really like driving these points, through to us, and he's not really doing it with a ton of finesse. He's really just kind of bludgeoning the point to us, which is fine. But
he's probably getting paid per issue.
Yeah, he's probably got a word count. It's like, how many more bubbles can I fit into this panel?
Exactly. Extend my contract, please.
But it's really good. It is really good. It's it's longer. These books, in general, they're longer than I think they're longer than your standard comic.
Issue, yeah.
And there's a ton of dialogue. It's really dense. It goes into a lot of mythology, a lot of like Spider-Man backstory.
Yes.
I'm really digging it. I would like to see. I'm just dying to see like how this resolves. And maybe that's what's getting me, because I am really I've enjoyed every issue.
Yep.
I enjoy the writing. I would just like us to get to the point.
Yes, of course. It's almost that whole thing, like I've heard, we're going to be talking about WandaVision at some point here, but even TV viewing, we're so used to binging on a story and getting the complete story that even it affects our reading, I think. Let's just get it. Let's just get it all. Give it all to me,
I mean, especially
deliver it.
At this point where like you've hinted at it so long, and kudos to Nick Spencer if he pulls like a complete like 180 and like it's something like totally different from left field. Good for him, he got us. But like at this point, I think we all understand and are on board with where he's going, with what he's been building to.
Yes.
Give us the main course, give us the main event. We really want to sink our teeth into this.
Amen. I agree. Well, we'd love to hear from you about
Hey,
what the.
somebody talking about goblins? I heard somebody talking about Green Goblin. He's the best. Hi, I'm Dr. Fizzlebomb. How you doing? How you doing?
Fizzlebomb.
Fizzlebomb.
Who?
Dr. Fizzlebomb. Hex Fizzlebomb. Green Goblin. You talk about Green Goblin? I heard you talk about Green Goblin. My favorite superhero. Oh, he awesome. Oh my God, he's so cool. Yeah. Why you talk bad things about him, huh? You especially.
Yeah, can we get rid of this guy?
No,
What the-
I'm still here. I need to talk.
You look like you got
I'm
a skin
doctor.
condition.
Don't mess with me. I'm a doctor.
Is that-
Excuse me.
is that
Wait,
communicable?
I'm a doctor.
Keep him away from me.
I have credentials. What are you doing?
Think we might have some penicillin for that. All right.
That's unexpected.
That was a plot twist. Anyway, I'm not sure what to make of that.
Who was that
I
guy?
don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure what to say about that. But anyway, we would love to hear from you about your thoughts on the recent Amazing Spider-Man issues. Please chime in. Do you have a theory on where this is all going? Do you have a theory on what that was? Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.
I thought goblins were smaller.
I know, me too.